The following clip is a testimony of one of the victims of Project MKUltra. Everyone, this is Kathy O'Brien. Please listen carefully as she describes where she was taken when the US government used her as a test subject for their mind control operation.
I was to meet with Noriega. Alan Simpson was already up there.
So he was there present when you was there?
Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino was there. And in essence, they did a modified version of the hands-on mind control demonstrations that I was forced to participate in on the various military bases and NASA installations across this country.
On the various military bases and NASA installations across this country. Now ask yourself, why is NASA interested in mind control?
That was where the term presidential model came from. In essence, they were demonstrating the latest forms of mind control to people. And this was a modified version of that presentation. And this was done to Noriega to show him not only the latest technologies in mind control, but also to play on his occult superstitions. It was done to terrify him into believing that he would have the wrath of Satan himself on him if he didn't comply with Reagan's orders. He was very terrified by the whole presentation and had run hollering from the room. So the effect was definitely there.
Now everyone, this is Mark Phillips, the CIA agent who stepped in and rescued Kathy and her 8-year-old daughter Kelly. Here he's going to describe some of the lasting effects of Kelly's mental trauma. But pay attention to where he describes this trauma taking place at.
Okay.
I was stating that there's a very good chance that when Kathy arrived to pick her daughter up, her daughter had no memory, even though they've been talking about this.
Can you speak to the master of?
I was setting the time.
Oh, I see.
I'm listening to it. The child will probably have very little ability to even remember what she and her mother had talked about doing today. And I know Kathy told me, she said, well, Kelly ought to be ready to go, and she'll have her hiking clothes on. And I said, Kathy, it'll be the first time. I said, she will not remember, most likely, that you were even going to be here today. Yeah, and it's always this way. Of course, Kathy always hopes that the next time she sees her, she'll remember.
Oh, I see.
It just doesn't happen. It can't happen.
So she was used from the day A to be in the program, right?
Yeah, absolutely. From the moment she was born, they were doing amniocentesis or whatever they call it, on Kathy at NASA, on Kathy before the child was still in her womb.
They were doing amniocentesis on Kathy at NASA when the child Kelly was still in her womb.
They were doing all the kind of probing around and sticking the needles through the stomach and everything else. I have no earthly idea what they were doing.
Ask yourself, since when are the folks at NASA interested in prenatal care?
I can assure you that
somebody knows what was done on her. She has a file.
Yeah, there's tons of files, but I don't have access to those files. I do have access.
Okay, dolazi mała.
I have access to one or two of the files.
Z tym nikt nas powiedział.
This is Kathy and her daughter Kelly. Both of them were mind-controlled sex slaves in this US government MKUltra operation. Now you might be wondering, is this a fluke? Did he really just say NASA? Maybe it was something else that sounded like NASA, and you're just imagining that because you want NASA to be the bad guy. Because NASA has to be the bad guy if you want to sustain your belief that the Earth is flat. Or perhaps you might be saying, oh, Well, these experiments might have been taking place at NASA, but that doesn't mean these experiments were carried out by NASA. Please listen carefully to what Mark Phillips says next. First, he's going to describe Kelly's mental state and why she has to continue to live in a mental hospital. And then he's going to say something that you really need to hear.
Identity disorder. Part of the symptoms of this disorder are her inability to remember from moment to moment. And in order for her to appear normal, she mirrors anyone that she is in contact with. So they feel very comfortable with her.
So I said to her, for example, I like Discovery Channel.
Yes.
Is that right? And then she said, yes, it's the only thing I'm watching.
Yes, exactly.
You see, there was some particular moment in time. Now I'm recalling that.
Exactly.
Is it called mirror?
It's called mirroring. She will mirror your actions, the way you hold your hands, the way you talk. Eventually, she'll even begin to pick up your accent. The disorder itself is most unfortunate, most uncomfortable to the person that suffers from it. But the worst part is it develops into suicidal and homicidal behavior. They become, these people that suffer from DID, in many instances, but not all, become very agitated very easily for things that we don't even know that could agitate them. A word or a place or a suggestion or a thing can set them off, and they become extremely violent, either towards themselves or towards others. Kelly's situation is not without this horrific, terrible symptom. She suffered it many, many times, and that's the reason that she has been maintained in a mental institution for most of her life. She has spent from age 8, she is now 16, she has lived in a mental institution or in an institutionalized setting.
So what is her life before? She was NASA Institute?
The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, I hold directly responsible for her condition.
The National Aeronautics and Space Administration, I hold directly responsible for her condition. Not the CIA, not the FBI, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, NASA. Plain as day, no mistake about it.
Because it was they that was developing the programs under some Nazi scientists that were brought to this country under Project Paperclip.
And this is one of the many reasons why I do not trust NASA. And with that, this is one more reason why you should stand with me in the movement to abolish NASA. If you want to look more into this, you can find their autobiographies on Amazon, as well as their documentary. I understand this stuff is dark, and that the natural response is to avert your eyes in hearing their stories. But please remember, so was the Holocaust. Just think of how much effort people make in the United States to remember that. Oh yeah, we can remember that because bad guys did that a long time ago in a country far, far away. But when something horrific happens on our turf, by our own government, then we avert our eyes. Oh, but never forget 9/11! Let's put that in the history books, because bad guys did that to us from another country, and the government needs you to feel their resulting war was justified. Don't be another victim to their mind control. Yes, this stuff is dark and disturbing, but the biggest monsters that you need to always remember and never forget, the ones you need to keep the closest eye on, are not the ones in faraway countries. They are the ones in your own backyard. Together, we can make a difference. Abolish NASA! And say never again. A special thank you to my friend Cindy from the last Flat Earth meet and greet out in St. George for sharing this information with me. You are awesome. The video clips I just shared came from a much larger video. Please feel free to go check that out. It isn't a coincidence that ring on the logo there is in the shape of a sperm. It is time to wake up, people.